I am Shaka Shabazz. Welcome to the Rayshawn and Shaka podcast. Rayshawn is out on assignment in North Carolina. And Rayshawn was so gracious to let me sneak up in this place while he ain't here so we can continue our saga on the Rayshawn and Shaka podcast. But that's not the half of it. We got a lovely guest stepping in for Rayshawn. Erica.
Hello. All right,
All right,
so you
Northwestern.
ready? You ready for my second story?
Oh, Lord, here we go.
What?
So we were doing so well. Damn.
This is a good story.
Yeah, is it?
It's a good. I don't think I can play it because it's an interview clip, but I'll tell you kind of what it was.
And just tell us where it came from.
Okay, so Anthony Mackie, the actor,
Yeah, that's my bad.
was on a podcast.
I just saw the movie.
I did too. It was actually pretty good. I'm not a Marvel fan,
Me either.
but I thought it was good. Anyways, he was on a podcast called The Pivot. And I've seen this podcast before. I got this from the Shade Room, by the way, you guys.
Oh, Lord.
Shade Room is amazing. I love Shade Room.
Shout out to the Shade Room.
Shade Room is amazing.
Maybe we'll go viral one day and get some money.
So he's talking about, it says, Anthony Mackie speaks about raising his sons to be masculine men. And then in quotes, it says, my boys have never had a pair of Jordans. So Anthony's basically talking about how he's raising his boys, right? And that since they were little, they understood what being a masculine man was. You're a protector, you're a provider. They had to take care of their mom and do this and do all these masculine things. He's very strict with them in a way. How he's speaking, he didn't say he was strict, but how he's speaking about how he raised them, it seems like he's very strict. And he's just saying, like, even his 15-year-old now, he knows that, you know, when I'm out of town filming, he's the man of the house. You know, did you do this? Did you do that? He's checking to make sure he's doing all these things.
Okay.
So as he's saying this, I'm thinking to myself, whoa. Because you know how I be feeling. First of all, my first question is, what is masculinity?
Well, he kind of said some of what we in society recognize as masculinity.
Society. So what is
Okay,
this?
but when you ask that, though, when you ask what is masculinity, having been a woman that has had relationships, been married,
Yeah.
perhaps you have, I don't think you have any male siblings,
No,
Right.
no, I don't.
relationship with your father,
My father passed away when I was 13. So no.
13. So up until 13?
No.
Okay. So with all due respect, perhaps that's why you have question it the way you do. Now, I don't know exactly, we'll get into why you question it, but okay. But you ask, what is masculinity? Well, masculinity is all the things that you think would make you want to defer leadership to a man. I won't say all things, because they're different for different people. However, a lot of those things are not dissimilar between different people.
What would you
want a
say
provider,
masculinity?
Being conservative with your emotions,
Okay.
because when you're conservative with your emotions, you can think about what the situation at hand, right? Masculinity is being a protector, a provider.
Okay.
A masculinity is how you interact with other people, you know, with women, with men. Masculinity is how you maneuver in the world. It's not always a physical thing that you do.
Of course.
There's a lot of non-physical things that make a man a masculine man. You expect me to, one would expect a man to have some strength,
Okay.
right? Be that physical strength or mental strength,
Okay.
right? So when you ask what is masculinity, masculinity is a lot of things. And we all have them in varying degrees, just like we all have other characteristics in various degrees. I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, right? You know, the conversation was having intuition and being logical. Being logical and having feelings. And my thought on that was that we all have the same emotions and the same. I have the ability to use my intuition just like you do.
Yeah.
I have the ability to cry and use all the range of emotions that God gave me just like you do.
Exactly.
And I have the ability to reason and use logic just like you do. But in our culture, how our culture is set up, and I think some of it is based on our DNA and based on our assignment in life too. We we're maybe stronger or weaker in some of those areas, but we all still have them.
Right.
And we all use them, but we use them in different degrees. So when you say, well, you're a man, you're logical, or, you know, I use feelings, you don't use feelings. Well, yes, I do use feelings. You don't think I've ever cried about something?
Well, that's what I'm like.
So it's a combination.
Right.
But when you talk about masculinity, though, we talk about masculinity in a sense that there is an expectation that you as a woman and you as a child have for a man. Now, do we live up to it? No, that could be debated all day long.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right, and when we talk about these things and when men like Mackie talk about those things, people hair raise up because in our society today, we live in a different world where masculinity is all but being, I see it, look at your eye.
Listening.
Masculinity is being attacked because what we consider masculinity, what was considered masculinity at one time is now being called toxic, mean, all these other terms.
Yes, so he.
So
did
I know
say
that's a
that,
long answer,
no, but he also said that in the interview that masculinity is not the same. It's being basically attacked now. That being a man and masculinity.
Now, when you ask this, do you ask this from the standpoint of a woman dealing with men, or do you ask this from a standpoint of a man and how he raises a man?
I'm asking this from a standpoint of a man because I'm trying to understand what y'all's definition of masculinity is. Because
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand.
From a more primal, and I guess, because we live in a world now where we live in a very safe world for all intents and purposes, right? It's not as safe as people think it is, though. We just have tunnel vision.
Right.
For example, you want leadership in a man. You want the man to have leadership qualities.
Of course.
Okay? You said that with trip. I saw some quiver in your voice.
Because it's not like he needs to be the leader all the time. That's
not what I said. You want because now a leader is a leader.
Right.
It doesn't turn off or on when you feel like it's not appropriate for you to be a leader now.
But I don't
you know what I'm saying?
need him to come in and be a sergeant at arms and taking control of everything.
But that's not what a leader is.
Some men don't see that's what I'm saying. Some men don't know that.
But people move the goalposts. Because I can be an assertive person,
right,
who want to raise my children a certain way and have a certain type of structure.
Yeah.
And you say, no, I don't want that kind of structure. Well, I am the leader of the household.
That's going to be a problem.
But it's going to be a problem. Because the problem is now that we are competing against each other as men and women. For one of the first times in modern history, we are competing against each other. We're competing for the same jobs. We're competing for the same real estate in life. 70 years ago, most women livelihood was tied to the income of a man.
Oh, yeah.
So today, you will hear a woman who's the head of her household say that I run shit here. This is my house. You don't come here doing X, Y, and Z and all the other stuff. But that's what men were doing 70, 80, 100, 200 years ago. And you said, no, I don't want that. But now you are coming into modern time with the same responsibilities, the same leadership, the same power in your life that men have always had. and you have the same characteristics. So how can you turn to a man and say that's wrong for you to say, you want things to go your way because you're
No.
paying the bills or
No.
because you are the financial leader in the house or whatever the situation is. I don't want you to tell little Johnny that he needs to, needs to take out the trash every night. That's his responsibility in this house as a young man. I am raising, and I'm using that as a simple example. But how many people that are not in that dynamic, and I'm trying to be choice with my words, don't require that of their sons. They don't require
Right.
certain things of their sons because they
Right.
think it's too hard, it's too tough, it's too mean, it's
Yeah.
too this, it's too that. Until they become 17, 18, 19 years old, and a cop knocks them upside the head and drags them around and tells them what to do, and you have nothing to say about that. So we try to raise a man, those of us who are in that mindset, there's some that are not, because we know the challenges and the things that that boy is going to face as a young man that he needs to be mentally fit for. Okay? And these are the things, these are the ways we do it. There's no other way to do it. We see the results of people who don't do that. Now, I'm not talking about the one-offs. I know a person that I'm a very good friend of mine who, and I can't even say that for them because they mentioned that throughout that child's life, although his father wasn't there, his father died at an early age, was raised by his mother. Every summer, he went to another state to spend the summer with his grandfather, who picked up that. So he saw how to be financially responsible, giving them chores, showing them things that men show their boys, So he still had that. And he's a much different he's a responsible kid who looks out for his mama, that's an earner, provider, and all that stuff. So I went on a tangent. But my whole point to that is saying that the eyes tossing up when we talk about masculinity today, I think there's a false security with some people because you can pick up the phone and have somebody come do your plumbing for you. You can pick up the phone and have somebody come clean your car or fix your car or whatever. If you work 3 or 4 jobs, you can get your own house. You could be the boss of your own place. Now people are opting to not even be in relationships in order to have children. So yeah, you can do all that stuff, but there is a cost to that, I think. And when you take the man out of the equation and you tell him that he can't, raise a son, or your eyes toss up because you say, oh, he's raising a son to be men, to be, masculine men. What does that mean?
Okay, so the reason why I'm asking this is because I agree with you. There are things that a man can teach their children. Of course, absolutely. There's things women teach and things men teach, of course. But like you said, the definition of masculinity is different for everybody. And so, unfortunately, there are a lot of men whose definition of masculinity is toxic. This is where we
Explain that.
So toxic masculinity is...
Give me one example of what you would think directed to you would be a toxic situation that you would attribute to somebody trying to be masculine.
Financial abuse. A man who says, well, I pay the bills. I'm the one in charge of this. So I'm telling you that I control this, and you'll have to ask me to spend this type of money, go this type of place, do this. You got to ask me about everything. You're not getting your own money. You don't have your own bank account. You don't have. But that's what I'm saying. That's a form of financial abuse for women who stay at home, who don't work, because these guys want these traditional women. And they take them out of the working place, and now they're at home, and now they're dependent solely on this man. I'm not saying masculinity is a bad thing, because as people, we all have that energy. We have masculine and feminine. Some work in their feminine, like I do, where you more in your masculine. I get that. But some people take that, and just like what we're talking about the church, they'll take that and manipulate you. Some people will take that masculinity and take it to the 100,000th power.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, but to your point, and I can't believe I'm halfway agreeing with you a little bit, low key.
You guys, let's put this on the record books, please.
I agree that at some point, it's not masculinity. We're not talking about masculinity at some point. We're just talking about a person that's being manipulative and
But they call it masculinity.
holding their resources up. Well, masculinity to me is, and I'm trying to use it in the context of the example you just gave. In that example, masculinity to me would be, number one, he is the breadwinner of the house. Okay, so if you're with a person, and this is because women do this all the time. When a woman has an income and a woman is got it going on financially, God forbid that she's in a situation where she's making more than the person that she's in her mate, and I'm talking about a living situation, someone, domestic partner or whatever. Well, that's the first thing they do. I'm not going to be able to go to the bank and just withdraw whatever I want from it and go do whatever I want to do without hearing from her about it.
That's not true. Now,
wait, oh my goodness, are you serious?
Do you know how many sugar mamas out there let these men have?
No, I'm not talking about sugar. I'm not talking about those weird dynamic. I'm talking about in a marriage or in a situation where you're raising a family and one person makes more than you, the same situation that you gave, reverse it. They will say that, oh no, that man, that's a shame that he went into that account and did that. What kind of man would do that? What kind of man would do that? So, and I'm setting it up that way to say this. You got a woman, you know what her shortcomings are. You know she ain't good with no goddamn money. You know she ain't good with money. You know if it was left up to her, she would be coming in the house every day with some, and you're on a budget. So what's wrong with that man saying, hey, look, we got to put the great brakes on this. We have a budget, the bills need to be paid. I don't think you need to be coming in here every day with a new dress or a new toy for the kid. We need to manage our money. Now, I'm not going to pretend that everybody says that as diplomatically as I'm putting it.
Right.
But what is wrong with that? That's not toxic.
No, that's not toxic. But that's far few between.
So what if I get to the point where I done talked to you about this 2 or 3 times?
That's not the toxic part. That's something that you guys are having a conversation as a couple and you're coming up with a plan.
No, we're not.
Listen.
We are not, because clearly you have an issue here that I'm trying to address. So we're not trying to do anything.
Right, so you're addressing it.
Right, but you don't like the fact that I'm addressing it to you.
No.
You go into how I'm talking to you, and you don't talk to me like that.
Well, if you're talking in an attitude and aggressive and disrespectful, of course there's going to be a problem. But if you're coming saying, hey, I've noticed this, and then third, I'm going to have to say.
Oh, so you're saying I'm supposed to come like this? Baby,
yes, hold my hand.
Now you know.
Exactly, every time.
I just wanted to let you know.
That part.
That now you did nothing wrong. I want you to know you did nothing wrong.
No, I'm saying that 2 adults in a relationship will come together and have a conversation. The conversation will go, hey, do you understand that this is what you're spending every month? This is what I'm looking at, and this is over our budget. We're going to have to cut back. So
okay, we have that conversation. It doesn't happen.
Okay, so we're having the next conversation of,
the same way.
Right, so since you didn't cut back, this is my solution to the problem for now. Okay. For now, we're going to have to put you on a budget. This is what your monthly budget is for the household, your monthly budget is for yourself.
See, I believe
you don't get any more than that.
I like the way you said that.
And that's fine.
But that very way you presented that is interpreted as toxic and holding money to some women.
What I'm saying is
because you're talking about one thing. You're talking about attitude. Okay, we have an attitude issue here. I don't like the way you came at me about this. Is that toxic? Wait. Is that me wielding financial abuse? Or is that just you not liking the way I came at you about it? Let's just say I came to you abrasively.
So
that's attitude.
Right.
How is it financial abuse?
So what I'm saying is financial abuse isn't a one-off thing. Isn't just this one time we're having these conversations. I'm upset
I'm
because
cutting
you're
you
not
off.
listening.
I'm giving you an allowance, and I'm telling you can only spend $50 a week.
But financial abuse is when you're with someone who is the breadwinner, you're not making any income.
Okay.
And you are unable to make income. So you're solely dependent upon
So
this
why
person.
are you not able to make income?
Because if you're in a situation, in a marriage where he's like, I don't want you to work, you
That's
stay
not
home
able,
with these
though.
kids. If he's
not
not
being
allowing
able.
you, that's another form of abuse.
So you're telling me in modern age, and I think, by the way, I know that couples will agree to have a certain lifestyle situation, right? We got these 2 kids here. It's cheaper for one of us to stay home than both of us working and spending a third of our income on daycare. So it just makes more sense, right? Okay, that's a family decision.
That's a family decision.
Me personally, I'd prefer you work. We'll figure it out. But anyway, that's I'm that nigga.
Shaka say, no, we doing 50-50. What the heck? Shaka said, ain't no staying home around here.
I'm short on coffee this week, baby. I mean, can you give me?
Right. This is a 50-50 relationship, ladies.
No, I don't believe in 50-50 per se, because in a real world situation among real regular people, anybody could be short at any time. So,
Yeah.
But
I'm saying what's toxic, and when I'm coming from situations where women are in abusive relationships already.
But you're pivoting. I notice how you pivot, and most women do this. You guys pivot to the extreme.
But the extreme is not really extreme. You just don't know. That's the thing. Like, you guys don't know.
No, because don't get me wrong, I've been called toxic and I've been called toxic many times, and I swear to you, I'm looking up in the air like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm just sitting here telling you my point of view. I'm giving you my point of view.
Yeah.
So I just think that with respect to what the examples you're giving, I think people use that term. I just hate it because they use it so loosely for anything that they don't like coming at them.
Yeah, I mean.
And I know that's not your experience,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that's kind of how I summarize it sometimes, because it's happened to me many times. Now, just because you don't like what I said or how I said it doesn't mean I'm being toxic to you. You just don't like what I'm saying to you.
Right, we don't like what you're saying.
Right. And especially if you're in a dynamic where the woman reserves the right to be whatever she want to be to you.
Right.
So
toxic masculinity.
There's no such thing
There's
as
not.
toxic
I mean,
masculinity.
it's not. But I mean, there's abuse though.
Yeah, but
A lot of
people
these
are
guys
abusive.
are.
People
Yeah.
are abusive.
Yeah,
People
there
can be
women-
abusive.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a. Listen, we don't live in the 50s and the 40s. The dynamic here with the dynamic is different here. You can go out and work and earn money, which affords you a certain amount of anonymity, independence, and power. Right? So you don't like a situation, you can say, "Fuck you, Shaka."
Yeah.
And walk out the door. You know what I'm saying? So
every time.
uh,
Every time, child.
now,
Go.
60 years ago, most women could not do that.
Right.
By the way, many women did do that, but it just wasn't common because you go out into the world and either you're not going to get a job that makes a lot of money, or it was just different. And of course, there are caveats. There are women. Look, what's her name? The first black millionaire. Female. What was her name? Madam C.J. Walker was a millionaire in the early 1900s, right? That wasn't common for the average black person, but so women could make their way, but it just wasn't common. Most women didn't even want to do all the shit that women are clamoring and scratching each other's eyeballs out to do. The women back then would look at y'all like y'all done lost y'all goddamn minds.
Yeah.
You want to do what? For how many hours?
But,
So it's just a different mindset. But with that comes a different attitude and a different approach to relationships.
Yeah.
It's just different. I'm not going to tell you that, hey, look, Baby, I think you spent too much money this week. Well, what are you talking about? I spent too much money. I made, I could spend my money. I earned it. That's
see,
just how it is now.
Right. But at the same time, that means you guys are not on one accord, right? You guys didn't sit down and plan together. She's not with the program. You guys had a plan and she's not with it. So I get that. I mean, yeah, but.
Yeah, but when you're with someone, and see, this is why I think some of it is kind of like cap a little bit. Because you will, not you, some women will get with men of means. I mean, men that money ain't a, we're talking about regular people, talking about squabbling over who's gonna pay this and that. But there are people who live lives that money just ain't a thing.
Right.
And there are women who will do anything, you name it, to be in that world. But you'll turn to the dude that you're working it out with, and you'll keep talking about how masculine he is, how messed up he is, because he's trying to manage the funds and he's fed up with your bullshit or whatever the case may be. You'll call him toxic all day long. But there's a certain echelon of men who you don't even utter those words with because you want to be beneficiary to their resources or access. And so tell me why it's so different.
I'm not that woman, so I can't tell you why.
And that's what women will always say. That's their answer. Well, I'm not that woman.
I'm not moved by money because I know what comes with
Well,
that.
it's not just the money. It's just what's more valuable than money is access. Imagine, like, one of the biggest things that people who divorce famous men miss, it's not the money. Because once you divorce him, you don't have the access anymore. You're not invited to the NBA parties.
True.
You're not going to the NBA wives.
But a
whatever
lot of
they
these
do.
women just make away from themselves so they can still keep that access.
And that's not, but if you're not married to an NBA man and you're not and you're not a part of it no more. Now, I say that this is secondhand, so I'm only saying what the NBA guys say. I don't know. I've never been in that world. I'm sure there are women who, by the way, most of them ain't making their way. They got in there by being married to somebody, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with that.
Right.
I'm just simply saying to make my point. Whether it's a corporate dude, whether it's the CEO of Google, I don't know if it's a man or woman, I don't know, or whoever it is, it's the access. Some of that access, like you said, unless there was a person who have made their own bones in their own way in the industry, you're on the outside. So the most important part is not the money. The money is important. But I'm just saying, it's like the access. You're not around the women who you congregated with, that you all can sit there in the bathroom and talk about your ball players and your this and that. That's gone. So yeah, you got this money, but you don't have that access anymore. So I know I'm going on a tangent with that, but I think that's the most important thing for most people. The money is going to come and go. If you're savvy enough and whatever, if you have a couple kids by a dude or whatever, then you're gonna get some money. You're gonna get chipped off. I mean, it's happening every day. Look at the big one that's happening right now with the ball player and the girl who's the singer and the dancer, Tatiana or something. They're having this big divorce going on right now, and in her what they call that when the complaint. In her complaint, she's talking about how he's never really made a lot of money, and he's not this and he's not that, and she helped him come up, and she lists pages and pages of her accolades and accomplishments, and how many shoe products has been licensed under her, and how many music videos she directed and been in. And she lauds herself, right? But when it comes to the compensations page, she's saying that she needs all this money because he makes all this money. Now, early on, she said that he didn't, she held it together. He didn't make any money. But when it came to the conversation part, like, okay, what's going to be divvied up? Oh, well, he's got this and he's got that, and he owned businesses and this, that. But you just said that he wasn't earning no money.
Well, in the beginning, he wasn't.
No, it wasn't beginning. I'm talking about, it wasn't a matter of the beginning or the end. It was just she was listing her accomplishments and her assets. So not to get in the weeds by that. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that people always move the goalposts when it comes to resources and all that kind of stuff.
Of course, it's a tricky
Yeah.
thing, especially when you're going through divorce, and especially when you have that type of money. Of course, they're going to try to get what they feel that they deserve.
I don't think she deserved none of that.
But that's what she thinks.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
If you have your own money, it ties back to what I'm saying. Believe me, this ties back in. If you're making your own money, if you're making tens of thousands of dollars a month, and you're this boss chick, and you are a leader in your field, no, you're not going to be the woman that's going to come home and be like, baby, I know that things are tight right now, but you think we can go on a cruise this year? What you think?
it depends.
You're
on
not
the
going to be that
dynamic.
kind of woman.
No, I can't agree with that.
Really?
I can't. Because it depends on the dynamic of your relationship. Some women will do that. Some women will have a conversation. Some women will, yes. I cannot agree that every boss chick is just F you and what you want to do. I'm doing me.
I don't even think it has to be that kind of attitude.
But that's how you guys make it seem.
Definitely, you ain't asking.
Like,
But no, definitely, you ain't asking no man for nothing. You say it all the time. I ain't asking no man for nothing. They be totally in love with that dude. I ain't asking no man.
I've never heard a woman
Really?
say that.
I hear
Not
it all the
a
time.
woman who is in love with somebody who respects him.
Well, that's a whole nother.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Thing,
That's the dynamic. Like,
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
I've had family members tell me, ain't nobody care what no man think. Ain't nobody caring
They
what
don't
no man
respect
think.
him.
You don't respect men.
Well, they've had bad experiences,
So
unfortunately.
okay then. So what kind of energy do you think for a person like that? What kind of energy do you think they're going to get back? Because they're still in relationships, they manage to still get into relationships.
And they're getting in a relationship. I'm pretty
They still
sure he
need
knows
to-
what he's getting himself into.
Not all the time. You can get.
There
you
is
can
no way a
definitely
woman
get-
that is that strong and that bold and that out opinionated is sitting there being demure in the beginning. He has no clue that that's
I like
how she
that
feels.
word, demure. Damn.
Like, he literally knows that this woman feels this way because she has no qualms in letting him know this.
I don't know. But let's get back to the whole masculine thing.
So, yes.
So-
So Anthony Mackie, my other concern or thought was...
Concern.
Well, thought was when he said that he
I
had...
think they need to go check on them kids.
Well, no, not that dramatic. But I just feel like he said that when he's away, his 15-year-old's in charge. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a lot of pressure on a 15-year-old.
But you don't think it's a lot of pressure when a woman tells a single woman tells her teenage son, "You're the man of the house."
I do. That's a lot of pressure to put on a child.
How is it pressure? Teaching them responsibility.
There's teaching
You
responsibility.
can put that in context. Put it in context.
Teaching responsibility, but making you the man, the adult. You're not adult yet. I'm going to teach you responsibility, but it is not your responsibility to make sure this house is safe because you're not an adult yet. What happens if somebody came in the house? What is he going to do?
Fight to the end.
So my 15-year-old
That's what a man.
child,
See, that's the difference.
but my
that is the difference.
15-year-old child is going to fight to the
But
end.
see, that's what you're. But see, that's the thing right there, and that's the thing with society now. You look at a 15-year-old as an unable.
No.
Well, yes, you do, because you right there you're crippling him. You're telling him that he doesn't have the agency to fight for his life if he has to.
His
If
life.
somebody, well, hold on a
fine.
minute. If somebody come into this house to fight for his life, when we live in a society where people are disappearing, teenagers are disappearing left and right all the time, we live in a very, very, very mean world. It's not until modern time that we babyfy children. Back in the past, 14 and 15-year-olds we just did a show talking about that a few shows back, where they lynched a 14-year-old boy that they called a man in the 50s, black, of course, and
Yeah,
that
right.
whole dynamic. So it's not until modern time where we're telling these teenagers who are doing all kinds of stuff, by the way,
Of course.
that it's not, to your in your words, should not have that kind of pressure on them. Well, what do you say to the 14, 15, 10, 11-year-olds that are gang members, that are doing all kinds of shit?
Should not be.
Well, but okay, you say you should not be, but I'm saying
Unfortunately,
they
their
still
circumstances have put them in that situation. I can't. Yeah, but what I'm not saying.
No, but I'm saying no. But my point to it is not whether it's right or wrong. My point to it is that they are fighting and they're defending themselves, and many times they are predators. I hate that word, but you know what I'm saying. They are protagonists.
Yeah.
Okay, so but when it comes to your home and your 15-year-old, you're telling him, well, it's not your responsibility to make sure that we're safe in here. It's not your responsibility to make sure that all the doors are locked in the evening. It's not your responsibility to understand how to load this weapon. That's crippling them.
Not crippling them. I'm not saying that he shouldn't learn how to do this, but I don't want to put the pressure on him of saying, you got to protect me and your siblings because your dad's not here. Now you are on, this 15-year-old is on edge thinking like, hey, the second somebody come in here, I got to take control. Even if that means pew-pewing somebody coming through the door. That he's 15.
Yeah, but again, respectfully, you keep saying he's 15. Do you know that 15-year-old was considered a man at one point in time? Throughout the decades, we have stripped, and it's even to the point now where we're telling young 20-somethings and mid-20-somethings that, oh, he's still a baby. No, he's a grown-ass man. You got to teach them to be men. You got to. They're going to be, you have to raise them up that way. Now, I'm not talking about abusive stuff. I'm not talking about telling them to go hey, okay, you see that dude over there? He's 6'5", he's 200 pounds. I want you to go over there and fight him, and you better come back walking straight. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about you have to raise them to be to take care of themselves and to be able to take care of others.
I'm not saying not to.
Then how do you propose that happens? It's not all philosophy. It's not.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, yes, absolutely, I want him to learn how to protect himself. Of course. But I'm just saying that I don't want him to have the pressure of thinking he has to be the man of the house.
Well, and I think to even say that would be like, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that a child you're putting something on him that he's not really internalizing. Oh God, that means I gotta.
You don't know that.
Wait, hold on a minute. Listen, there are probably some kids out there that wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight. I get that. But one of the most prideful things a young man can do that he feels proud about, that most young men, you ain't even gotta set it up that way with them. They gonna do it anyway. You think if a nigga walk up in that house and whether it's a burglar or ex-boyfriend or whatever, you don't think that he's gonna by instinct do what he can to protect his mama?
I get that.
So
but I don't want him
gotta
to
say
feel
nothing.
like he has to do anything. My number one thing as the mother is to protect.
Well, see, that's why, again, respectfully, you're speaking as a single mother. And that's what a single mother may say. But a dynamic where there is a mother and a father, the dynamic is different because the father's going to teach him one way and you are the nurturer.
Of course.
So,
but in this
you
instance,
can't have two
where
nurturers.
Anthony Mackie is out of the house and he's telling his son, well, you're the man of the house now. You better protect this house. You better handle all this stuff.
Okay, and by the way, we're talking about Anthony Mackie. I don't know if Anthony Mackie, I know he's a successful actor. I don't know what his paper's like. But I would make a big assumption that his version of you taking care of this house, in Beverly Hills somewhere,
of course, I know, I get
is
that.
different from where I live.
But there are men who have this mentality and want to teach their sons, like, you're in charge when I'm not here. You got to handle this. I just feel like there's a lot of pressure when it comes to that. They're
But you're thinking as a woman, though. You're thinking as a woman.
Well, how else would I think?
Well, because you're talking about a boy that's growing into a man.
He's growing into a man.
So
but
you're
he is
infusing
not
you're
yet
infusing
there.
you're infusing those fears in him.
It's not fears. It's just I don't want him to have the pressures of an adult just yet. I need you to just grow up a little bit, mature, learn some things, have some fun, be a teenager. I don't need you to be sitting here thinking about adult stuff.
Well, I don't think that's where we're going to just disagree, because I don't think that just like there are things that you teach your daughters pre-puberty and throughout their pre-adolescence and throughout their teenager, you're preparing them to be women in the world. That's what I think you're supposed to be doing.
Of course.
Okay, so it's going to be very different for a man. We got different things.
And that's
different
where
things.
my question came in.
So I could use the same argument with you. If you say, of course, then you're instructing your young girls about working, and that's too much pressure. You're putting pressure on me to be a woman. Anybody could say that.
No, because
You're putting pressure on me to give up these sugar walls. These sugar walls is too sweet, mama.
Not doing that at all. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Now, baby, I just want to tell you.
No.
One day, you are going to light up the world. I'm going to prepare you for that.
I would definitely prepare them about what it is to be a woman, but I'm not going to put the pressure on, like, today you need to start doing this. Go pay all these bills, girl. Go over here and cook this meal and serve these men. No. I want you to be a teenager. Go have fun. Do teenager things.
Most girls, see, that's a contradiction, because most girls learn how to cook when they're girls.
I'm going to teach you to cook. That's
So,
nothing.
okay,
but
so-
I'm not saying that I'm teaching you how to be a wife. I'm not teaching that right now. You're not in no be a wife era yet. We'll get there. Life will happen. I want you to be a teenager. Then I want you to be a girl in college and live that life. How about that? Then I want you to travel and see the world and have your career. And we can talk about marriage and what that looks like.
So so you're basically turning to her, as far as a man is concerned. I'm not talking about in the world. Mm-hmm. You're, for all intents and purposes, want to make her an unmarketable woman to a man.
I don't care. I want her to be
Why
happy.
wouldn't you care?
Because I want her to be happy.
But she's not.
And her. How do you
they're
know?
not, because there are millions of women who
That's
follow
not
that track
true.
that are not happy. They're on TikTok every day talking about how unhappy they are.
That's not.
How can you say it's not true when it's coming out of their mouths?
I'm talking about young girls. I'm not.
Yeah, but we're talking about the result
older
of
women
them.
in my age bracket are saying they're unhappy because they haven't found their person yet. They're not saying they're unhappy with their lives. They're just waiting for their person
Well, I
to
mean,
come.
we can't say that. I mean, there are combinations of that. There are people out here, by the way. I know we don't like to say that. I, have this conversation with someone all the time. There are people that are unhappy with their lives. There's nothing wrong with saying that. That is a part of your life.
Yeah, but
So if you are not happy with a segment of your life, then
that
fix
aspect
it.
of your life, yeah.
Yeah, then, I mean, that's up to you to fix it.
Right.
So,
at
but
that
you're
point-
saying that.
But what I'm saying is that I tell every young woman I see, go live your life.
What does
go
that mean?
explore. Get your education.
Okay, you can get your education.
Get your career. Do something that you love. Find your way.
But what if
Find
they
who
don't
you
want
are.
that? What if they don't want? Not every woman wants that.
If they don't want that, then live your life how you want. But I'm telling
But that's
you.
not the key. That is not, my point is that those things, all those things you mentioned, isn't the key to a happy relationship with someone.
I believe it is.
Well, I mean, there are many examples of that not being true.
I believe it is. I believe it is because
So you think me as a man, and this goes into the thing about you guys, and I'm talking about relationships. I'm not talking about in the world, how the world perceives you. People that have no interest in, people who don't sleep with you. Mm-hmm. You don't ask what men want or what men are looking for. Mm-hmm. And then those who do ask what men are looking for, and then when you hear what they're looking for, you get mad at their answer. There is nothing, and we're talking about masculine men. Mm-hmm. We're talking about men who believe in being providers, leaders in their household, or whatever the case is, want to take care of a woman, right? Mm-hmm. not looking for this super educated, highly accomplished woman, and that does nothing for us. It can be, but you keep doing that. But when you get in a relationship with someone, everything about you is either an asset or a detriment to them.
Right.
So it does matter. I know that you can't say you don't care what a man wants, and then you're looking for a man.
Because I'm not looking for every man. I'm looking for one man. And what
Well,
one
of
man wants
course.
from me, my man, my person that's for me.
But you're not going to be.
He's not going
But
to
you're not
care
going to be
about
happy,
those things.
and
Those
you're
things
not.
are gonna. He's gonna love that what makes me
Yeah,
me.
but you're
me.
But the caveat to that is this: you're not going to be happy with him. It happens every day.
Why would I be happy with him?
So you're telling me that you are only concerned with a man who is looking at you like she does whatever she's got all these things, and
No, I want
there's
him to have
nothing-
stuff going for himself too. I want him to be happy within who he is, and I want him to live his life and find out who he was and explore, and so that when we get together, we don't have that moment where we're like, "Dang, I don't know myself," and now I'm in this relationship and I'm trying to figure things out, and we're always arguing because we don't see eye to eye on things because I'm thinking this and he's over here. That's why I'm telling girls, go find yourself first, because I was in a marriage where I didn't know who the hell I was. I let this man into my life, and it became extremely abusive because all I thought I was supposed to do was be a good Christian wife and give, do all these things for him. And then I got nothing back but craziness, manipulation, lies. All these things happened because I didn't know my worth and I
So
didn't
you don't
know
think
who
that
I
had
was.
nothing to do with the person that you chose to be in your life?
No, because I was dating all kinds of guys like that because I didn't know who
but
I was.
It's still a type, though.
It's me. I was the problem. I was the common denominator.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this: in every stage of my life, and I know this is anecdotal, every stage of my life, I've not been a toxic man. Don't be calling in, y'all.
I want to know the story.
I've not been a toxic. Of course, I've had relationships that went awry. Of course, but I've never been this abusive person that have violated women's civil rights and told them that they're not allowed
not
to.
every man
told them
is.
that they're not allowed to spend more than $40 a week and all this kind of stuff. I've never been that.
Not
that
every
dude.
man is.
I've had some people trying to do that to me. Help me. So back to the masculinity thing. I think this all ties in, and you can do all that. You can go in, find yourself, and finally, when you're 55 years old, you say,
Stop it,
"I
Shaka.
found myself.
You guys are
I've accomplished.
oh my
I've accomplished all
gosh.
it." I know age is a trigger for people, but listen. You can spend your best years living your best life and not committing to a person. That is well within your right to do.
Who says those are your best years?
Well, I'm talking about your younger years.
Why are your younger years your best years?
Well, I don't want to say it.
Say it. Say
I
it.
just think I think they're all of our best years. Look, my
They
best
were
years.
mine.
Okay, well, okay then. Okay, I accept.
That's why I said I don't know where y'all
But
getting
I'll
this
tell you
from.
this. Well, I'll tell you what. Well, because what people say and what people attest to. So I'll tell you that my best years, I think, was when I could run, jump, and climb higher than I can do now. When I was more physical than I am today, that I had more strength back then than I had today, that I had more staying power, and I don't mean that.
Now
No,
this
I
is
still got to
all
stay explained.
making sense.
I could tell you that my best years were women would think that I was the cream of the crop, and I'm not talking about finances. I'm talking about just in my being, my best presentation of myself to the world. Where people were women, because we're talking about dynamics between men and women, were like, okay, yeah, I'll choose him. Now in a lineup, they're not saying. No, I'm not saying. They get accused every now and then. But I'm saying, don't get it twisted, player. I still get accused. But I'm saying, don't get it twisted. I'm not comparing myself to a 25-year-old.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I mean by your best years, and your best years when it comes to a mate you say, well, yeah, I'm just as good today. And I'm using 55 as an example. Not saying you're 55 or any particular person.
Now I'm 41.
Okay, so I'm just stick with 55 because I ain't gonna even get into your shit. But you say, well, what are you talking about? My best years. My best years is that. A 55-year-old woman can't get no man, the best cream of the crop man that she wants. Kids.
If he's 55, if he still want
But
kids,
no, because a man could have kids as long.
that's
Listen,
the
well, listen. No, but I'm saying
Listen,
I'm piggybacking off what you're saying.
No,
your argument. No, your argument is that. No, your reaction was, well, my best year. What are you talking about? My best years could be at any age. Yeah, but you can't have children at any age.
And honestly, that's not true. There are plenty of women that 57
No, we're not
children.
talking about all those weird things that people are doing to have children. That's not natural. That's not natural. And by the way, those are people who have resources and go through a lot. That's not an easy thing. I'm talking about natural.
And also, just because you're in your 20s doesn't mean that you're fertile.
Well, see, now you're splitting hairs. Okay,
I'm not
you keep
splitting
moving
hairs.
the goalposts.
I'm being
We're talking about
honest.
two otherwise healthy people. A woman who says, you know what, I am going to take my best years that I could be growing a family. Listen, I'm just laying
No,
out.
I'm listening, but it's just so bad.
You say it's so bad, but listen, most men want younger women.
I know,
Young
and
men,
it's
listen,
so
and I'm not talking
bad.
about old men. Most young men want women in their age group.
No, it's not true.
I'm not talking about screwing. I'm not talking about just
That's
having.
not true.
I'm not talking about laying up with somebody. I'm talking
not
about.
talking about that either.
I'm talking about having a. Okay, so what is your limit? Now I'm getting triggered.
You're triggered, fool.
You're triggering me.
Because I'm telling you, as a
Because
woman,
everything I say, you're like, no.
because it's
no.
not true. As a woman in her 40s,
So you don't think that me as a
I
man?
get hit on more by younger men
Yeah, you get
who
hit on.
want relationships.
But do you get in a relationship?
No,
with them?
because I don't date
So
younger
so
men.
it's not. Well, but so that has not been proven though. Anybody could come to you and talk again, and I'm not
I see
saying
a lot of women in
and
younger
I am not
relationships and
saying that-
marriages and stuff like that with younger men.
I am not saying that men are not lined up to want to, bestow their resources on you. I know you're different. I know
Not
you're
different.
I'm just
I'm
saying.
just speaking
I
the
know
truth.
You got the goddess thing going.
I'm
I get it. But I'm saying, typically, and this is so triggering for women. You get mad
It's
at
not triggering. Let me tell you why.
men want what men want.
Let me tell you why it's triggering. Because I was that 20-something-year-old where older guys were after me.
Okay. How old are?
In their 30s and 40s.
Okay. All right.
And in your 20s, you don't know jack-ish about yourself, right? You are just figuring crap out. So these men know this. And they want you because you're prime.
I don't think that's always the case. All my young fellas I was diplomatic with all of them on that level. I'm just saying.
Now I'm triggered. Yeah.
Baby, you can have whatever you want. You want to go to the junior college? I'll pay for
Oh,
it.
see what I'm saying?
You want that? All you have to
The
do is...
manipulation. I can't.
So how would... See, you cannot win. You cannot win. Now that's manipulation. That's called, I hate this word, grooming. Because how is that grooming if you... Oh, my goodness.
Why are you choosing
So if
her? What about her made you say you wanted her?
Her femininity, her youthfulness, her ability to give me children.
Why do you want her youthfulness?
Who doesn't want youthfulness? That's what you and I spend billions of dollars a year trying to maintain. What are you talking about?
I try to make good health and being healthy
Let's
and
see,
happy in the body that I'm in.
Hairs.
I'm not. I'm being honest.
Listen, we're talking about youthfulness. We're not saying all those other things don't count. We're not focused on that. Let's not do that. Of course, there are many things that I focus on in my life. One is trying to maintain a level of youthfulness, meaning that, your boy, you kind of,
Okay, but you can't siphon that from a young woman.
Well, why is that siphoning?
Why you get? Because that's
How
what
is that siphon?
I want her for her youthfulness.
No, well,
I want her to give me kids because in 10 years I'm gonna die anyway. She's gonna be stuck with these dang on kids.
So how many How many, now, so we getting into this age dynamic, and that wasn't where I was going with it.
I know.
You asked me about why do a person, and it could be anyone. It could be a young person, a middle-aged person, or an older person. Doesn't matter. They still want a youthful person. Now, I'm not talking about who people will sleep with and waste time with until they find the right one or whatever. I am not, and this is the one thing some women get confused. You think because you're getting a lot of sex, you think because you're getting a lot of whistles, that translate into resources. It doesn't.
It does not.
How many women have I had come to me and say, I've been engaged 5 times? To a man, that doesn't mean shit. Respectfully. That's somebody that just lied to you. And they got out before they had to pony up.
Or she got out.
He's still wiping his brow because you don't know whether he was sincere. It didn't happen, so you don't know if he was sincere or not. Of course, there are situations where a woman says, you know what? I don't think this is the right thing. I'm not taking that away from a person. But you don't know if you've never done it. Being engaged is not marriage.
Yeah, I know.
So that's the only point I'm making there.
Yeah, I get
So
it.
I'm only saying that because you get attention, because you're getting sex, because you're getting taken to meals every now and then, that does not mean that a person is going to pour their resources into you.
Yeah, we know that.
Okay,
But-
the smart people know that.
No, let me be honest with you.
Now, if you don't want, and this is what I've gotten in most recent years, most women that I have dated, which I haven't dated much, don't look at me like that. That was foul.
I ain't saying that. I'm listening to you, Shaka.
They don't want to be married. Or they've been married to Harry for 40 years and they ain't doing this, and they open up with what they're not doing. Mm-hmm. So that ain't going to go well, because for me, there are things that I may not require of you as a mate. I know you don't like that word require, but you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that I want your attitude to be that way. Mm-hmm. I don't require you to cook all the time. I don't require you to, I don't know. I don't require you to do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But if you're sitting in front of me and those things that I don't require you to do, you're sitting there, I ain't doing this, I ain't that. I don't like the attitude about it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to require, don't mean I would like it every now and then.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or your eagerness or your alacrity about doing what you think would please me.
Of course.
You know,
if you're
but
in
what
a
happens
relationship
is so
with
many
a woman
people
who really respects you, cares about you, likes you, loves you, she's going to do all the things.
And
if she doesn't like you, she's not doing none of the things.
and some of us, and the discerning people would be like, for a person that my radar is my antenna goes up. I know when you don't like me and not feeling me like that.
Right.
So it's already not going to go a certain way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to bank this way. It's going to bank that way.
Right.
But some people are blinded by what's in front of them.
Exactly.
And they'll say, yeah, you don't like me, but I'm going to fuck her anyway. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like
toxic. Toxic masculinity. There it is.
I don't know if we got anywhere on this, but I tried to state my case. It went left.
At the end of the day, I get it. I get it that we need to teach our young men how to be men or whatever that looks like. I'm just saying that I feel like in this day and age, I feel like we're not allowing these children to really figure out who they are and what path they're going on and who they're going to be. That we're dictating these things onto them, putting pressure onto them.
I don't know what world you're living in. I'm seeing kids on TikTok and
but that's
YouTube.
their choice.
Hold on a minute. I'm seeing kids out in the street. I'm finding these kids that are, I don't want to turn this into a dark thing, but I'm just going to bring it up just for sake of context. You know, they're out in the street doing all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
And you're sitting here telling me that, we're making them grow up too fast. These kids, you don't even know what your kid is.
That's not every child.
But it's on different levels, though.
It's on different levels.
There are kids right now that whether they're in Beverly Hills, whether they're in the Ninth Ward, it doesn't matter. They are out there raising themselves, doing all kind of shit, and they're coming home at 9 or 10 o'clock
because
at
their
night.
parents allow that.
And, well, we live in a society now where there are restraints on what a parent can do that we allow, back to what I said at the top of this show, that we allow law enforcement to do, but you're saying that parents can't do it to reel their own kids in. And there's a big debate about what the extremes are, what's right or what's not. But we're not saying that when our kid go out there and do something that they shouldn't be doing in society and they come back with a lump in their head from law enforcement. Nobody complains about that. What we say, don't be out there doing that.
I'm not saying not teaching them. I'm just saying that his idea of, oh, well, you're in charge of the house. Make sure the house is fine. It's your responsibility.
I think some of that is kind of out of context. I have not heard it myself.
That's what he said.
Well, no, I believe you. But I'm saying I think some of it is I think you're kind of stretching it a little bit. Like, I don't think that he means, just as a man, I don't think he means that, here's the loaded gun, you stand by the door and if anybody, I don't think it's like that. I think what he is instilling him, like I said earlier, is those principles and that mindset, because you're 15 today, but you're going to be 20 tomorrow.
Right.
You're going to be 25. You're not a child. And the world I come from, 18, listen, our government says that at 18, you're a grown man. You are a grown man.
Yeah.
But you would turn around and say, well, he's still a child.
He is. He's still got a lot of growing and learning to do.
Well, we always do. Life,
exactly. But at
we
18,
all do.
At 18, he's not even ready really to be out of the house. Like, you still got to learn. Like, there's so much you still need to understand.
You acting like I ain't never been 18. I ain't never been 15.
18 too.
I ain't never been.
I
yeah,
was
but
18
a girl,
too.
though. You was a girl. It's different.
I didn't have nobody protecting me.
You were just a girl.
Y'all better come get y'all friends. Rashawn gonna come back one last co-host.
You're just a woman.
Y'all better come get your homeboy. Oh no!
Let that man. Let him raise them boys like men.
He can raise his kids how he wants to.
Let us raise our boys. Let us
Mm.
raise our boys so they won't be out here. These emotional men that are doing all this crazy stuff. That's a result of just letting them do their thing. Look at all I talked about this in the past, about how these dudes, emotional dudes, who women are breaking up with them and they don't know how to handle it, and what they do. The ultimate, the unforgivable, the unreturnable.
And you think your masculinity would teach him how to handle that?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Now, there's always a one-off. I mean, well, listen, you're laughing, but there are kids who grow up in the best situations. Mm-hmm. In the best situations. Don't know what a minute of being hungry is. Mm-hmm. Have had cars from 13 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the kind of car I have now. Mm-hmm. Why do they become adults and do certain things that you would be like, well, this person had everything. Mm-hmm. They're bank robbers. What the f?
Right.
So there's always a one-off. A bad seed is a bad seed, right? So I want to cut you off on that one because I know you're going to say that, but there's always a one-off.
Yeah.
But you have to raise these kids that way. Look at these guys, what they're doing out here. Grown men. Oh, you said something to me on social media, wait till I find you, or they go look for you, and they're doing crazy stuff.
No,
that's
that
emotion.
Is true.
That's emotion. That's emotion. And while we all have emotions, there's a level of control that you have to have that a man is supposed to be raised into to be able to shut that down.
Do you think women aren't supposed to be raised in that type of control for their emotions?
No, well, on the surface, we're all supposed to have a level of that, but we understand and we give grace to women who are a little more emotional because you are nurturers, right? You're looking at me skeptically.
I'm thinking.
But,
I'm listening and thinking.
I mean, you're a nurturer. That is, listen, you are a religious woman, or you were. There are gender roles in the Bible. There are gender roles in church.
Yeah, I'm not religious anymore though.
My point is that there are certain, you are understood to be a lover and a nurturer. There's a role as a woman that you play as a mother, right? This it's only gotten conflated because we have so many single mom and single dads today that are doing both. And by the way, yes, you can be a great, great, great parent who filled in both those roles. That still don't make you a dad.
No.
You know, but you
You're
have
not a
women
dad.
that will say, I was a mother and a father. No, you weren't. You were a great mother. Because there are certain things innately that you can't teach a man. And I can't teach as a man for on the other side from the nurturing part. I can be as loving and nurturing as I can possibly as a man. But there's just that it don't hit the same the way a mother would. It will never hit the same because it's built in your DNA to be a certain way. That's not a slight. Now, there are ranges of things, okay? You can have a little masculine woman, you know. I mean, you can have a woman that's, you know, that's take on the characteristics of a hard parent or whatever. That's fine, okay. But still, that's something that you have to work to do. That's not something that's natural to your nature.
And you don't think you can tap into your nurturing side, your feminine energy, to be more nurturing?
Why would you want me to do that?
If
And
you're-
I'm talking. Well,
no, I'm saying
I
like-
have to well.
As
It
a
won't
single
work for me
parent.
as a man going in the world because this is the reason why. If another man smells that in me, that could be a matter of life or death for me, and that's just something that women will never, never, never understand. If a man that wants to take my woman, if a man that wants to take my food, if a man that wants to sit on my fucking couch smells that in me, he's gonna try me. And that's something that a woman don't understand. See, traditionally, historically, most women have been protected by a man from those things. Now, you've evolved into this independence where, yeah, you can go get a gun now and you can call the police and different things like that. You have systems in place that you can, you know, you can
Shoot,
fend
because
for
we need to
yourself.
be protected from the man that was trying to protect us.
But if a man acts that way or has those traits as a dominant trait, he's in trouble. That's in corporate America, on the streets, in his home, with his woman. Are you serious? So that's the part that as a woman, as a woman, you will never understand. Just like I could never understand what it is, and I'm being extreme here. When you first have that baby, and the doctor gives it to you, and you're holding it like that, and it's all icky and all kind of, you ain't even worried about all that. You all like, look at that's cute. I can never understand what that feels like. That's a connection that you are making. That's a bond. If the kid ain't a bad seed, will last until he die.
Not the bad seed.
Well, you have matricide going on now and all these other things. So that's something that's a bond. That's a feeling. That's an energy that I could never understand. I can empathize with. I can try to kind of understand it, you know, or try to tap into it, but I never will. So there's just things that are
Well,
different.
I'm saying tapping into your nurturing side as a single parent.
Well, I don't think that you can be a parent and not have a degree of nurturing. There is a balance.
Your feminine side.
But see, women always want men to be tapping into feminine. Why do y'all want a man to be in the feminine side? For what?
It's naturally
because it's
in you.
benefit to you. It's a benefit to you. Because it's a reverberation that you want from that person.
I'm just asking if you can
But I
tap
tell
into
you, when
it.
you're both sitting in the club, 7 years old, and you got your little skirt on, you're looking all good with your little puff coming out of your little thing there, and your dude is sitting next to you, and Debo comes from across the way, and he grabs your hand, and he puts his hand on you behind and leads you to the dance floor, and you're looking at your dude, and he's like, oh, wow,
I'm
this
not
is so
asking
great.
you to be
Well,
feminine all day, every day.
No, but that's the opportunity I
asking
use.
as a
That's the
single
opportunity
parent.
that I use to tap into my femininity.
I'm so done. I can't.
I can't fight that
I'm
nigga.
saying-
That nigga big.
I'm just saying, as a single parent, would that be something you could tap in for your child?
I think. Have you never been married? I think that's a woman's job. That's why men have roles and women have roles. Now, we all have all of these emotions and all of these thought processes. God has given us all the same stuff, but he's given it to us in various degrees. Heck, you have a degree of testosterone in your body. Is it enough to make you grow hair on your face?
It does.
Oh, well, okay.
It does.
All right.
It does.
Okay, well, I can't grow breasts. So
You could.
I don't have enough. How?
If you have enough estrogen and yes,
And how do I get enough estrogen to do that?
you might have a hormonal imbalance.
No, I'm a regular.
You're regular, so yeah.
So that's why-
but there
hence-
are
hence
men
me
who
saying-
can because
hence-
they have a hormonal imbalance.
Hence me saying I can't.
Okay, you can't.
Right. Any last thoughts? I'll beat you up.
Lord, y'all, I don't know if I'm gonna be back.
Did we resolve anything here? Did we come to-
Absolutely not.
We agreed on a religious thing.
How many years have we been having these conversations? Have we
At least
ever
three.
resolved
Well, sometimes we get
anything?
close. We get close sometimes. You don't like the dominant male part of our conversation.
Not
you
that I
can't.
don't. I
You
just think
can't.
it's just
And I understand that you have had certain experiences that have given you a certain perspective that that you tap into, right?
Right. I just
But
feel like
that's not all experiences.
I
Have you ever
know.
had a good experience? Have you ever had a boyfriend that was like, or a man that was like, damn, I can't get enough of this nigga?
In some aspects, but not all. I
See,
mean, we're
now
not
you
together.
going to it with an attitude. That's your issue. You got an attitude.
How the heck I get an attitude? What? Let me tell you, Shaka, and I ain't tooting my own horn,
Uh-oh.
but I'm just saying.
Hello. This train is number late.
Just
Go ahead.
because I show up 100%.
Okay, but that's
And
not,
I'm giving.
so there has to be a reason why they're passing.
No, I'm passing, honey.
So you're always passing. You're
Yes.
always, every single, for the last 5 years, you're always passing.
Yes.
No one has looked at you or been with you and said, you're sweet, man. It's not you. It's me, baby.
I've never had that conversation.
Really? Wow.
Because I'm always the one to go.
Well, don't you think there's an issue with that? If you're always running away?
Yeah, because I'm always choosing people who aren't good for me.
So why don't you choose someone who's good for you?
This is why I'm in therapy, honey. My therapist is helping me.
Everybody has a kryptonite thing, right?
Oh my gosh, yes, I do. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect.
No, and I wasn't implying that you. Well, look, we all go through that, but I'm just saying, like, you say it like these niggas out here, but it's the people that you're choosing.
No. I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying that there is a reason why they still want to be with me. That's what I was saying. I have passed on them. I have let them go.
To ask you.
What'd you think, Shaka?
I'm so tempted.
Think I got some tricks up my sleeve?
You got your sweet personality.
Yes.
You got that nice even complexion. You know what I'm saying?
But it's just because I show up.
Level of intelligence.
I show up. And I show up really like.
But you're showing up too much on the front end, though.
And that's my that's why I'm in
Who do you think you're talking to? Who do you think you're talking to? Come
That's
on.
why your girl's in therapy, because
know.
she's learning these things. But that's why I'm so adamant about young girls figuring things out first, knowing who they are, so that when they do show up in these relationships, they show up authentically themselves. Because when you're getting with these young girls at a young age and they haven't figured things out yet, they're gonna marry
What is it
you.
they need to figure out?
Who the hell they are?
So who are you to say that they haven't at a certain point?
Shaka, at freaking 20 years old, these girls trying to party and live their best life.
But see,
they ain't
I
figured
think
out
that's
who they are.
I
You
think
have
that's
to
more
go.
of a, but
you
I
have
think
to
that's
learn.
more of a, I don't know, I keep pivoting back to this. And this is where you start getting diminishing returns in relationships, because I don't want a girl that's been partying for the last 5 or 10 years
Who
of
says
her
we're
life.
partying, Shaka?
You said party. You used the word party.
I said 20-year-olds.
Okay,
are
but partying to what?
partying, they're not working on themselves
Until
just
when?
yet. You don't party all your life, Shaka.
Some people do. Look at Madonna. I'm
Guys
just saying.
do too.
Yeah, but it's different for us.
Oh, damn. Can y'all come get your friend, please? Who is picking him up? Because what?
Listen, one thing I don't understand and I don't agree with is a man who decides to get married and he's decided and he's not done with the streets. I don't understand that.
But a woman can't figure out her life before getting married?
There's conflation. There's two different things. A person who gets married and they're not done with the streets, why not just stay single? If you're not done with the streets, why not stay single?
Right.
But it's been recently explained to me, and it makes a lot of sense, that some people want, just like some women want resources, they ain't really trying to be tied down with that nigga, but they want to be comfortable. They don't want to have to worry about certain things like mortgage.
Work on themselves.
And, well, okay, but they're not done. So the same thing with men. Some men, they want a home life. They want to be able to come home somewhere and have certain things taken care of. Not to say that she's a housewife. She could be a working person too, doing different things. They want children. They want all those things. They want the appearance of having the picket fence and having that straight up life. But they ain't done it with the strip club yet. So I understand the dynamic with that. Well, I mean, I get the premise, but why do that why get married if you're not done with the streets? You know,
that's $1 million question.
Right. And the same thing for women. You know, you ain't really trying to settle down with nobody, but you know that you can't pay your own bills. You know that you can't.
Get yourselves together. Figure out who you are so that when you do come into
Well, maybe they know who they are.
They do not.
How do they not know? They know what they want. They know they don't want to work. I mean, I'm serious. They know they don't want to work.
They do not.
And by the way, I'm not saying all women, because obviously there's tons of women out there getting it. But there are some women out there that are like, Shaka worked at the plant.
Yeah, but they think it sounds good when it happens, but then what they don't understand that there's expectation and requirements when you deal with the man on that level. When he's taking care of you and giving you money.
Listen to what you just said.
There are.
You just parroted what I said an hour ago.
I'm not saying that there isn't.
But here's the caveat though. Jake the plumber, he wants some of that same shit too.
Any man that's gonna sit there and say, "Stay at home, I got you, I take care of you."
Even if you want to work every day, you still got requirements.
But then you guys work together on those requirements. When you're in a relationship with somebody that's so responsible for you, guess what? You gotta follow the rules.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Yes.
Yeah, but when you both are working together as a team.
Well, and see, we men, we talk about this among ourselves. It's not so much that you gotta follow the rules, because some guys don't have all that. But there is a level of respect that a person just wants.
Of course, you're gonna get respect.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, if I'm taking care of you, you ain't gonna be doing all that damn back talking. Well, you ain't gonna be doing all that smacking lips, and you ain't gonna be doing all that. You ain't gonna be doing all that. I ain't see you in 2 days because you sent me to another room and all that. That's the kind of things that I'm talking about.
You guys want these younger girls? They have.
No, we don't. Why you on this whole younger girl thing? No, we don't.
Just say that y'all
I
want
was
younger
using
girls?
an example about your young life, and you talking about living your best life.
Didn't he just say that men prefer younger girls?
There are men who prefer younger girls.
Shaka, didn't you say you was one of them? You just said this to me.
That's relative. Younger is relative. Younger is relative.
To you, Shaka.
Listen, if you are a man, and I know you don't want to get this, if you are a man who says, you know what, I want 2 more kids, I can't do that with a 50-year-old or a 40-year-old woman. I'm saying if I was that man, I'm not saying I am. I can't do that with a 40-year-old woman. Number one, the average 40-year-old woman gonna be looking at me like, nigga, you lost your mind.
That's not true. I want children.
The average. You're not average.
I'm definitely not.
Okay,
I'm just playing.
You know, or they have children already. They're not trying to do that.
Okay, so But how are you convincing these young girls to be with you?
What are you talking about convincing? What are you talking about? You ain't gotta convince nothing.
Didn't you just say?
You gotta do it just put some, sprinkle some resources around.
That's how you
No
convincing
different than a
them.
40-year-old woman. No different than a 50-year-old woman.
That's totally different.
So you mean to tell me?
Me in my
no.
40s, your resources mean nothing to me, sir.
That's you saying that, and that is a lie, ma'am.
No, it's not, because I know what comes with it when a man has all this money and that's all he
Well,
got
we
to
ain't
offer.
number one, we're not talking about all this money. We're talking about just regular people. We're talking about Jake the plumber.
Jake the plumber can't afford no 20-year-old to stay at home and giving babies.
They do it every day.
Who? What the plumbers making? Let me be a plumber.
Plumbers make good
I
money.
need to be a plumber.
Plumbers make good money, so much so that women are trying to become plumbers now. Just like women are trying to become truck drivers. Oh, not becoming, they are truck drivers. So, I mean, I'm not harping on the money part. I'm just simply saying, when I say resources, I'm not just talking about money.
What else the heck y'all got to offer?
We got a lot to offer. Protection. That is a disrespect right there, though.
Sorry.
You say, what do you have to offer?
Disrespectful.
You as a man, but listen, as a man,
you haven't given me anything else.
I've told you,
up.
Protection.
I'm supposed
You're
not protecting nothing.
Oh, what you dealing with the dudes that ain't trying to protect nothing? That's the dichotomy right there. You say, what do I bring? What am I giving? I'm supposed to lay my life on the line for you as a man in your life.
Down,
as no, but I'm saying, I'm not married to anyone either.
You laying your life down for your wife?
So check it out. Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do as a husband, my family. I'm supposed to protect my family at all costs. Of course, yes. That's what I give you. I give you the fact that if the nation says we're going to war to protect your way of life so you can go to Saks Fifth Avenue and spend up all my check because no one can check me, boo.
Is that what women
right.
are doing?
So
don't think they're doing that.
Well, listen to what I'm saying though. You say, what do I have to? What am I bringing? I am expected to go and fight for my country. So you have the right to do all the things you want to do inside this country. Now I know what your remark is going to be to that. Well, women are in the military too. That's elective. You can choose not to go or to go if you want to or not. And by the way, there's a large percent of women that go to boot camp and they be like, shit, send me home. So I'm expected to do that. I bring a lot to the table already by just being a man, that you in your comfortable life now get the luxury of saying, oh, what can you do for me? There are things that as a man I'm expected to do. Now, whether you want me to do it or whether you feel I could be that in your life, that's a totally another thing. But on the surface, I bring a lot just by being a man. Now, the issue is, do I sound hot? Let me bring it down.
He triggered y'all.
I'm triggered.
He triggered.
The issue is you get with Leroy around the corner who don't feel no responsibility to nobody or nothing and selfish and, never learned these principles of life and he never had a dad in his life.
What percentage of women y'all be dealing with that's dealing with these Pookies and Ray Rays?
Well, the fact that you use the term Pookie and Ray Ray mean that you know that they're out there.
No, it means that
and by the way, a man
so much from these red pill guys that I'm trying to figure out where these women are coming from.
Well, the thing is
that are of the caliber that you want to date, but they only want to date Pookies and Ray Rays. I'm
check
so
it out.
confused.
Because there's a lot of examples of it, but I'm not going to go in there. I'm not going to shame anybody for their choices. But there are men out there who don't feel that responsibility. All right, and they haven't been raised. And by the way, Pookie and Ray Ray could be a nigga that's got a 6-figure job. Pookie and Ray Ray is a mindset. So it's not something that most of us are not born with. So a Pookie can be anybody. Any person that's not taking care of their responsibilities or, being representing themselves in a certain way or not showing up when they need to, or that's sucking somebody else dry, that doesn't pour anything into somebody, anybody could be a Pookie.
And women choose those over you guys?
What do you mean, you guys? What you guys are you thinking I am?
The good guys.
Well, I'm not saying I'm a good guy. I'm not. I advocate for the good guys.
She's your advocate.
This has been Spirited.
This is always
Don't
a good
forget to
time.
like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you know when we're on. Thank you so much, Erica. We're going to have to
Thank
do
you
this
guys
again.
for having me.
This shit ain't over.